Welcome and thank you for joining the channel. Please help this channel by liking and subscribing. We really appreciate it. There are no ads on this video. If you have a scary story you would like me to share on this channel, comment below and your story will be featured in a video. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy these creepy encounters with the paranormal, accompanied by rain and thunder. As you inevitably age, your skin will wither and mush like putrid fruit. Your organs will decay into useless sludge. Even your mind will rob you of a lifetime of memories and experiences, reducing you to nothing but an organic shell of who you used to be. You've begun to feel it already. Imperceptible by the day, but implacable as the marching years, your body is growing soft and weak. You will never, ever again be as young as you are in this moment. And even now you could smell all those lofty dreams of youth rotting into idle fantasies that you will never be realized. Ah, but those sweet children, they are the closest thing you will ever have to immortality. They are your only chance to rewind the clock, rekindling the magic of forgotten innocence. Your legs will still tremble as you drag yourself out of bed each morning, but you can feel the spring in their step when they play. Their mastery of skills which have elude you. Their passion for discovering a world which is dead to you. Their burning blood which hasn't yet learned what it means to love and not be loved in return. Everything they are is yours. It's too late for you, but not for them. But only so long as you use the wisdom which life has cruelly carved into you, molding their nascent minds to live the perfect life you have forfeit. I know you're doing your best, and I know that sometimes that isn't good enough. They will turn from you in their naive ignorance, as you have turned from your own parents. They do not understand how selfish they are being, destroying not only their life, but killing your second chance's life as well. But don't worry, because we can fix your child. Do they scream and fight back against your commands? We can fix it. Do they waste their time on idle laziness that distract from their fulfillment? We can fix that. Are they brutish, rude, ugly, stupid, ungrateful wretches who do not understand what sacrifices you have made for them and what they now owe you in return? One of our greatest success stories began with such a beast. His parents worked very hard for him, but often that meant leaving him alone for long hours to entertain himself. He became obsessively addicted to games during that time, holding his parents' love hostage to continually demand the latest consoles and media. His adoring parents gave everything to him, hating themselves when they reached their limit and had no more to give. They tried to get him to exercise more, to eat better, to study and learn and play with the other children. He would only retreat back into his cave though, spurring any attempt to change his ways. Classes were being failed. Graduation was postponed. The boy didn't understand and refused to understand what life would be like when he had to support himself through his own grit and merit. He was setting himself up for failure, and sure as any disease which devours from the inside out, he was killing his parents. They were desperate when they came to us. They blamed themselves for his shortcomings, not understanding that it was their child who was broken until we offered to fix it. They didn't care. They just wanted it done. I sat them down, free consultations, mind you, and had them both write down a list of everything they wanted their boy to be. Let the imagination run wild. Now is not the time to be encumbered with reality, which has already been a burden for too long. They were hesitant at first. Then the father wrote down, "Be more motivated." That encouraged the mother to add, "More happy." The more they wrote, the more they broke the illusion of their son's adequacy, and the more they had to say. "Make him taller," said the father, "and get him into shape. More compassionate," said the mother, "and more sociable with his friends, smarter, funnier, more honest, more polite." Both of them were crying by the end. The boy they had created was nothing like their son. But I was there to console them. Nothing like their son yet, but don't worry, because we could fix that child. The parents did as they were instructed and left the town for the weekend. Standard policy. It can be stressful for them to be present during the fixing. We came for the boy in the dead of night, when we knew he would be home. We are professionals after all, and don't like to waste our time. We didn't bother to knock. That would only give him a chance to escape. The parents left the key with us, and we entered the house without lights. Up the stairs to his room, where the sound of machine guns still blared from his speakers. The little bastard stayed up all night, although that isn't uncommon when the parents are gone for the weekend. He might as well get his last games in now, because he won't be able to play them anymore after we're done with him. His game was loud enough to mask our entry. He didn't notice us until we ripped the swivel chair from under him. The struggle is always brief. Sometimes we'll get a fighter and we have to subdue them with force. But any damage done to the body is inconsequential. He won't be using it for much longer. I'm pleased to say that even his little monster was fixed within a week. His parents didn't even recognize him, but there's no doubt that they will be happier now. He never talks back. He never speaks before spoken to, and even then he'll say sir or ma'am. He hasn't touched his games yet. And nothing about his passive consequence promises so much as the least resistance anymore. Of course, the original is still with us for research purposes. The one that's been returned is the only one you'll ever need, though. And you'll love him to the end of the earth. In return, he'll love you back more than you thought possible. Because he, in his young life, has already learned a lesson that some of us do not understand until our grave. That this world has no place for broken things. My therapist had me make a list. She asked me to do it at the end of our session. It was meant to serve as both an outlet for preservation, unhelpful thoughts, and a way to acknowledge events from the past that, up until recently, I had been working hard to keep buried. I was to bring this list to my next appointment, where we would discuss its contents and explore how it could be used to eliminate this tendency to keep replaying past events in my mind. She said it would give me permission to take a break from thinking about those things, knowing that my experiences were safely preserved on the list should I ever need confirmation that what happened was real and my feelings are valid. It seemed like a local strategy, and I would not be surprised if she observed positive outcomes when using it with her other clients. Hell, there might even be a handful of peer-reviewed journal articles that posit a statistically significant negative correlation between creating a list of one's persistent negative thoughts and the frequency at which they occur. As a professional in the mental health field, it is essential to be knowledgeable or imperfectly supported intervention strategies. But that alone is not enough. A competent civilian recognizes the importance of individualizing treatment. This is because a strategy that yields positive outcomes for one person can negatively impact another. When my therapist gave me that chosen homework assignment, after speaking with me for less than an hour, I think she must have underestimated the intent of my anger and overstimulated my level of empathy. The list, though, turned out to be a brilliant idea for entirely different reasons. Fun fact, I have a profound appreciation for lists. There is just something about order and organization in general that puts me at ease. So, even though I had no intention of attending a follow-up appointment with that therapist, I got started on the list right away. I remember every incident that happened during that traumatic 3-year period of my life in vivid detail, so making that list was easy. The difficulty came after it was complete, when it was time to analyze what I had written down. The first time I read it, the paper grew damp with tears of humiliation that dripped from my face. The second time, tears of frustration rained down upon the page in big fat splotches. When I read through that list for the third time, my tears slowed, and things started to come into focus. The subtle escalation of violence, my ever-increasing threshold for accepting intolerable behavior, it was all so obvious. I had let that motherfucker turn me into a cliche. With that realization, my eyes were wide open, seeing things clearly for the first time, and they were bone dry. So, my list. I have read it and reread it so many times that the bright white piece of college-rolled paper is now tattered and discolored, wearing thin along the permanent crease lines that have developed from the repetitive folding and unfolding. The writing is faded and smudged in some places, making parts of it illegible. But that is okay. I've had the whole thing memorized for a while now. Now, it is comical how narcissism can make a person believe they are untouchable. An inflated sense of self was Jack's signature, reflected in every area of his life, including his privacy settings on Facebook, which made it all too easy to track him down. That fucker never could resist a good humble brag, and in a single status update, he gave me everything I needed to know. This last year of sacrifice and preference was all worth it when I was unexpectedly made partner at prestigious law firm. Today happened just in time for the big move to most sought after neighborhood in Portland too. This was immediately followed by an exterior photo of his new house, complete with a hashtag blessed. Gag me. I zoomed in, hoping to catch a glimpse of the house number and any reservations I might have had about what I needed to be done disappeared. Because standing on that beautiful wraparound porch was a pretty blonde whose bright smile told me she had no idea what she had gotten herself into. He tagged her in the photo, so it only took a second to access her profile. Our similarities were too plain to be a coincidence. Blonde hair, athlete built, at least 3 inches taller than him, highly educated, working in a helping professor. Seems that Jack has a type. That is okay. I have a list. I keep it with me at all times. It grounds me when I started to lose focus. Reminded me of horrific things he has done to me. It can also be very calming in times of high stress, like right now. For example, when I'm sitting in the dark, park across the street from Jack's house. The house has been quiet for hours, and when I see Jack pull into the driveway, I am relieved that he is alone because I have a tranquilizer gun with enough magazines to knock out a horse, a bag of various tools, and a list of things to do. And I plan to take my time with it too. Stay up as late as you want. I don't mind, my mother used to say. I don't think Religia will like it though. Religia was the monster who lived in our neighborhood. Or so my mother used to say. He had a mouth in the palm of his hands and bared teeth that latched on and expanded inside of the skin of any disobedient little boy unfortunate enough to attract his attention. Quiet as the falling night and swift as a guilty heart, Religia would stalk the house waiting for his favorite meal. My mother never gave me a satisfying explanation for why misbehaving children tasted better, but she swore it was the truth. Good thoughts spoil the meat, she told me one night when she tucked me in. They make you all chewy and stringy and bland. Religia can smell an evil thought from miles away, though, and nothing will stop him from eating the person who deserves it. Is that why Dad's running from? I remember asking her once. I was too young to understand how much that question hurt her. Exactly right, she said. But it won't do him any good. There's nowhere to run that's too far for thoughts to follow. And wherever your dad is right now, you can bet Religia will find him. I understood that Mom was trying to frighten me into being good, but I was never scared of Religia. I thought of the monster more like a superhero, a fantastic force of nature that hunted the wicked and brought justice to the world. I imagined Religia praising me when I did well, and he never punished me no matter how much I deserved it. Other children had dads, and I had Religia. When the people at the grocery store made us put the food back on the shelves because we didn't have enough money, I just think about what Religia would do to them. And when someone was cruel to me at school, I'd imagine how it must feel to have those swelling teeth inside you that wouldn't ever come Compared to that, my troubles didn't seem so bad at all. My mom was wrong about Dad, though. Religion never caught up with him. Even when Dad came back and started hanging around the apartment, religion never touched him. When Dad was shouting all those things at Mom, religion never interrupted. And when he hit her, grabbing her hair, her throat, throwing her around the apartment like a rag doll, well, I guess religion had bigger scumbags to hunt that day. Religia must still smell some good in your father, my mother told me. Don't worry about me, though. If it ever gets bad enough, Religia will know and save us from him. Other children had God, and I had Religia. And when the sacrosanct night was broken by my parents shouting, I'd pray to him in my own way. If I could only contact an evil enough thought, then Religia would smell it and find us. I didn't even care what would happen to me because of it. As long as Religia was here, he'd get my dad too, and then my mom wouldn't have to cry anymore. I made a game out of it when I lay awake at night, trying to think of the most vile, twisting thing in the whole world. I thought about hurting the kids at my school, or throwing stones through the windows, or stealing. I thought about shouting at people like my dad did, or punishing animals. Anything so Religia could smell how bad it was. I tried my hardest, thinking horrible things day and night until, at last, during school, I finally thought about the worst thing there was. I was going to kill myself when I got home. I was going to tie one end of a string around my neck and the other end to the drain of the bathtub. Tying it so tight that I couldn't get it undone even when the bathtub started to fill with water. I'd be stuck there, doing and thinking the worst thing I could do, until really just smelled it and came for me. I heard my mom and dad fighting before I even opened the front door. They were in the bedroom, so neither of them saw me twisting a dozen ties together into a rope that would be too strong for me to break. The running water couldn't drown out the yelling, but it made everything seem a little less real. I couldn't wait for my head to be underwater so I wouldn't have to listen to them anymore. My fingers were shaking while I tied the string around my neck, but it was such a horrible thought that I knew I wouldn't be under for so long. Religia was going to come before I drowned. I'd tell him what was really going on and he'd save us from Dad. And then Religia would live with us and I'd fight evil with him like I always wanted. I thought I was going to be a hero as I tightened the tether and pressing my face under those warm, comforting waves. I thought Mom was going to be so happy when she found out what I did for her. I tried to tell my body to lay still, but it wouldn't listen. The burning pressure rippled through my body and I thrashed against the twined string. I couldn't break it. I briefly fumbled with the knots, but the water pulled them so tight to work through. I had to wonder what would happen if Religia never came, if I never came back up. And still being able to hear Dad's shouting while I was underwater, I decided that I was okay with that too. When hands finally grabbed a hold of my buckling body and ripped me free, I braced myself, waiting for those hooked teeth to pierce my flesh. It was just my mom, though, holding me and crying, pumping the water from my stomach and lungs. Did Religia come? Where is he? Was the first thing I asked. Didn't you see him? He's already gone, she told me. And Dad. Did he get Dad? I saw the blood leaking from my mom's closed door after I left the bathroom. I had to stay with my grandmother for a week after that. There wasn't any blood when I got home, and I hadn't seen Dad since. I still don't know whether the monster came or not that night. When I told the story to some friends at school, they said religion must have killed him. My friends were terrified of monsters after that, but that's just because they didn't understand. If this is what humans do to each other, then I'm afraid of life without monsters.